Well, when I first got the case, the first steps that I took really were that I read the case on my own. And I tried to get into the mindset of the litigators as much as possible. That way I could assist my students later on in the process. So I tried to get into the Crown's head and say, okay, this is the best or the strongest case for the Crown, and then the same thing for the defense. And we went over the OJEN tutorials on the website. And we watched some videos, and so we read the entire package as a class. I tried to answer the students' questions as much as possible, and then we went over the videos, and that really helped the students, I think, to understand the structure of the process. So we had our mock trial in class first. We had the round one. So I had half the class do, or I had a number of students do the Crown side and a number of students do the defense. They did work together, but they were also a little bit more competitive, and so the Crown worked independently and the defense side worked independently. When we went to the preliminary round, though, I switched things up a little bit. So I had students who were formerly Crown playing the defense, and so that helped them to really know the case from both sides. Our lawyer coach was extremely helpful, and so she came to see us. The students rehearsed not their lines, but the students rehearsed their pieces in front of her. Any questions that we had, I could email her or ask her in person, so that really helped. And the rest of it is just really letting go, I think. The students understood that I had a balance to play too. There was a line between wanting to be a teacher who would assist them and also wanting to be a judge, especially in our first round. I needed to be impartial, so I couldn't really know all the details of where both sides wanted to go or each side wanted to go. So, and they understood that. So after a certain point, I just said, okay, it's time for you to go, and then we'll see how it turns out really when we do our round one mock trial. My students really took a lot away from the mock trial process. They actually wrote little reflections, but they talked about how they got to see firsthand what the criminal trial procedures were like instead of just reading it from a book. So things like the arraignment and then the oath and the whole opening statement, arguments, and closing statements themselves. And it was just a lot more interesting. They also got to see a lot about what real life cases would be like, in the sense that different judges are different, and so they have different styles of managing their court room, and some judges were more hands-on and talked a little bit more, and some were more hands-off and just sort of left them on their own. So we also got to talk about issues of fairness too, because not all judges did things the same way, which is, I would assume, how it is in real life cases, because you don't have judges who do things the same way. And I think it was just good exposure. It wasn't exactly like what they saw on TV, but it was also fun and interesting. They really enjoyed it, and so they got to see that, as opposed to just, again, reading it out of a textbook. And also, my students got to see firsthand what it's like to be a litigator, so they got to use their critical thinking abilities, and they got to manipulate language in order to prove their point, in order to prove their argument. So I found that very helpful. And again, there's that difference between having a real life experience and reading something out of a textbook.